Hi, I'm Dr. Joseph Marbach. At Georgian Court University, we're committed to educating the public about the importance of higher education and its impact on our communities. That's why we're proud to support the important educational programming produced by the CAUCUS Educational Corporation.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by the law firm of GIBBONS, P.C., New Jersey Resources, Summit Medical Group, a physician-owned multi-specialty medical practice serving northern and central New Jersey in 70 locations, the New Jersey Education Association, Georgian Court University, New Jersey Council of County Colleges, and by the Fidelco Group. Promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and NorthJersey.com. And by Meadowlands Regional Chamber, building essential connections that drive business growth.
Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato, coming to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio in beautiful Newark, New Jersey. We're honored to have once again Kevin O'Toole, Chairman of the Board of Commissioners of the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, former New Jersey State Senator, served in the legislature for how many years?
22.
22. Let's do this. We'll do some Port Authority stuff, talk about some political discourse. You are a contributing columnist for Insider NJ. Check it out, folks. Great political stuff. You have written extensively on the political discourse, how nasty, how personal, how negative it is, and it's not productive to getting things done. You were part of the darn thing, Senator, my good friend Kevin, for 22 years. Did it change during that time? Is it just that now? And what's it about?
Well, I'm in a different role now, and maybe I'm a better coach than a player. No, I mean, part of what I was there for the 22 years, part of it's theater, part of it's you have this firm belief, part of it's just a real honest disagreement. And did I elevate my voice on occasion? I've been known to do that. So here's what, if you ask me, if you want to go back in time when Florio did the tax increase,
Jim Florio, former governor, 1993,
and the hands across New Jersey got very angry. They were burning tissues and whatnot. At some point, Chuck Italian becomes a speaker. I think
of the House.
Then you start seeing a divide. Then because the vitriol becomes really inflamed, and you saw a real partisan divide. And then nationally, you saw when Newt took over as the speaker,
Newt Gingrich.
94, 95, you saw a national divide. When Governor McGreevey came in 2002, January, he kind of fueled that fire. Now, Jim McGreevey's doing God's work now. We love what he's doing with
New Jersey Reentry Corporation, recidivism, second chances
doing
for ex-offenders.
Great stuff, but he wouldn't look at a Republican if they were on fire back in 2002. He just had his Democrats, he had his majority, and he ramrodded stuff through
What about today, Kevin?
The legislature. I think, well, listen, it's a different dynamic now. So when you saw what the Democrats did, they were jacked up against Governor Christie, and everything was a no, no, no. You know, I think they're going to give Governor Murphy a little more time and breathing room, although you read about some discourse.
You really do? You think the Democrats are going to be as cooperative? We have actually in this studio today, New Jersey State Senate President Steve Sweeney will be in. He'll share his views on the millionaire's tax, whether he thinks there's another way to go on the pension situation. Is it easier when the Democrats control the Assembly, the Senate, and the governorship to, quote, get things done on behalf of the people?
Well, I mean, look, we've read all of the comments between Murphy and Sweeney and the Speaker and Murphy, and they seem to be getting along from a distance. I assume as they get together for the budget, they're going to have to rally around and have some agreement, and I think that's going to happen. Look, and the reality is that the legislature is large and in charge. They are a co-equal form of government. Now more than ever, they're going to assert themselves and be heard. I think Governor Murphy's been doing a great job handling the legislature and working with them in a very calm, rational, reasonable voice.
Switch gears. Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. One of the big issues that has come up a lot. We actually had former Senator Bob Gordon, who's now going to be on the Board of Public Utilities. Lots of movement around. One of the things he talked about, and Senator Loretta Weinberg, you know well, kept talking about transparency at the Port Authority, oversight, so that people knew more about how you did what you do and make the decisions you make every day. How has that changed in the last couple of years?
First of all, I think Loretta Weinberg and Gordon and Senator Gordon are responsible for a lot of that transparency. Chairman Degnan responsible for really taking the shroud off what occurred at the Port Authority. And now with the new leadership and some folks like Rick Cotton, the executive director, who is sensational. He's an excellent partner. He's the best public servant I've ever worked with in my life, bar none. I think the two of us working together are bringing really good things in a very transparent way in New York and New Jersey.
Senator, let's be specific. Some of the most important projects, and do we lead with the Gateway Tunnel? Is the Gateway Tunnel, whether it gets done or not as we do this program mid-April 2018, we don't know where the president is on this, where Washington is. There has to be a balance between federal and state money. That tunnel going into New York City, back and forth, right? First, you believe it'll happen. Second of all, what does that have to do with the Port Authority?
Yes, and the Port Authority is a critical piece of funding. New York, New Jersey, the feds.
You also regulate the Lincoln Tunnel.
We do, in the Holland, and a number of bridges.
George Washington Bridge, the airports, et cetera.
You name them.
Path.
6 airports, but it's critical, and I think we're slowly getting there. I think that, we have not engaged, the Port Authority has deliberately not engaged with the public discourse, allowing the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives deal with the White House on that, and they're moving it along. I think we're going to get there.
I'm curious about something when it comes to transportation. We're actually in a discussion with the folks at the Port Authority about possibly doing a series that increases public awareness about transportation issues, trans-states, New York and New Jersey. And we've talked to you about this. Do we know as citizens enough about how people and goods and services get back and forth between New York and New Jersey? And is that our business as citizens or your business as policymakers?
The answer is we don't. I didn't have a clue. I've been in this state for 53 years, been involved in government for 30 years. Until I got to the Port Authority in July, I didn't have a clue as to how we move our commerce, whether it's the docks, whether it's the trains, whether it's the shipping, whether it is through the airlines. It is a massive industry that is kind of under the radar. The trucking industry, the transportation needs that we have, the infrastructure has to be in place to service just this tri-state area in terms of the goods and services we consume.
What happens when a bridge is crumbling underneath, or it's in disrepair, if you will, or the trains aren't working? What happens to commerce and people moving back and forth?
It's a major letdown. The fact is we have not invested enough in our infrastructure until we did the Transportation Trust Fund replenishment last year, which it was a bipartisan deal. Until we did that, we had no way to say we're going to fund bridges and roads going forward for the next 5 or 7 years. Bipartisan, we got together, Senate President Sweeney and the governor got together, and we put that money, where it counts, and making sure
you meant Governor Christie.
I did mean.
I just want to be clarified that you meant Governor Christie.
I did. So the reality is, if we don't invest in the infrastructure now, you're going to have problems like we saw in Miami, we saw in Minneapolis, where bridges and roadways are crumbling and
does it have
die.
to? Sorry for interrupting, Kevin. Does it have to come down to that? I think horrible event.
I think, unfortunately, it doesn't have to, but I think it shakes the consciousness of America. It shakes us awake to saying, what do we have to do? It's no longer just, you can't be against bonding or putting up significant dollars. The most ardent Republican has to understand the consequences if we don't put real money into roads and bridges and tunnels.
That's not a partisan issue.
It has developed to partisan.
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't
the way
be.
I meant to say,
yeah, it shouldn't be. And you saw Senators Orho and a number of others who came to the forefront, who took a beating, who suffered a primary and a general election beating after they voted for that Transportation Trust Fund replenishment. And they all won, by the way. Every person who voted for the Transportation Trust Fund and that gas tax as a Republican, they won their seats.
20 seconds before we let you out of here. You left the Senate when?
July.
How much are you enjoying your life since then?
I love my life. This Port Authority gig is the greatest public service I've ever been able to participate in my life. On top of that, I get to see my kids, my daughter, who's a freshman in college, soon to be a sophomore. My son's about to be a senior in college. And my wife and I get to travel and do some really cool stuff.
And you have a law firm, in fact, to fully disclose, one of the underwriters of State of Affairs for some of our public policy programming. And the name of the firm is?
O'Toole Scrivo.
Just want to make sure. And Tom Scrivo is your colleague. He's had some experience in government.
A little bit. So Tom and I met in law school first day. He served as a governor's counsel the last year and a half. Most amazing lawyer in person I've ever met. Senator,
I want to thank you for joining us, as always. This is, in fact, State of Affairs. We are coming to you from the NJTV studio in Newark, New Jersey, and we will be right back.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We are pleased to welcome Ira Robbins, President and Chief Executive Officer, Valley National Bank. Good to see you, Ira.
Good to see you, Steve. Thank you for having me.
I've been honored for the last few years to do some leadership and communication coaching at the bank. I've gotten to know it well. But when I met you, you were not the president and CEO.
No.
You've been there how long?
22 years this July. I started as a management trainee, got a job out of a newspaper to work for Valley.
Describe the job of president and CEO at this bank. And the footprint of the bank is?
So we have branches in New Jersey, New York, Florida, and now recently in the state of Alabama. New Jersey is our home, though. That's where the bank started in 1927, so the bank's been around for about 91 years. I think the role of CEO, president, is more just of a leader. From a directional perspective, how do you set the tone within the organization, set the strategy within the organization? You know, for my prior 21 years within the organization, it's really been pulling up my sleeves.
Operations.
And attempting to really...
Finance.
Exactly.
So is it a big... I'm curious, you know, as a student of leadership, I'm always curious about how people make the adjustment. You're dealing with finance, you're dealing with operations, like in the weeds, and then you have to step back and be a big picture leader?
It's a big change, for me at least. You know, I've always been, as you said, in the ground, in the focus, as much as I could be to make sure that what we were looking at made some financial sense as to the path we were going down. Now it's more taking that, having a step back, and hopefully having people come up with those ideas on their own, but once again, attempting to provide that financial acumen to make sure there's a path that makes sense for us.
Our State of Affairs focuses on public policy. I saw you with Jim Cramer, our good friend over at CNBC, and he was pressing you on a whole range of tax-related questions. A, the federal tax laws led by President Trump impact not just on the banking industry, but on consumers overall. Different in New Jersey than in Florida and Texas. Go ahead.
Absolutely. You know, you look at the state of New Jersey. So we've grown about 800,000 actual employees in the last 3 to 4 years. State of Florida, 4 million people have moved to the state of Florida. I think when New Jersey looks at its economics, it needs to make sure we just don't look from an isolated view, but we need to really, from a macro perspective, understand what are the other opportunities from a consumer perspective as well as a business perspective. Why does a consumer want to live in New Jersey versus the state of Florida? Why does a business want to set up shop in the state of New Jersey? And not only set up shop, but stay in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, so lay that out for a little bit. Just on the business end, what are you looking for?
Taxes. You have a 5.5% tax rate versus a 9-10% tax rate in the state of New Jersey.
Corporate tax.
Corporate tax rate. From an individual perspective, 0% income state tax rate in the state of Florida versus potentially 10% in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey is a wonderful state. And there's many, many wonderful attributes associated with it. Being so close to New York City, the culture, the quality of employees that we have here are second to none. That said, when you're looking at it from a business perspective, it definitely comes down to the bottom line. And if you're not going to be able to generate enough net income for yourself, for your shareholders, you have to make a decision as to what state makes the most sense. And when economic policy gets decided in the state of New Jersey, it can't be just an isolated view. We have to make sure we look at it across all different spectrums.
Ira, what do you think most consumers, I mean, you've said in some of the conversations we've had offline that it's regulation, a challenge, but the bigger one is technology. What do you mean by that?
It's such an opportunity for banks today. And I think, you know, when you traditionally look at a bank, banks are very straightforward. We take in deposits and make loans. But it's how we do that today that's really changing, and that provides the opportunity to really differentiate ourselves as a bank, whether it be Valley National Bank or any other organization today. And I think that also attracts talent today when you can come into an organization and say, I have the ability to mold something, to create something that's a little bit different as to how we connect with our customers. That unique user experience is what everyone's trying to really gravitate towards. How do you develop that? How do you target a specific customer segment and say, I'm going to deliver the very traditional product in a different manner that's unique to that customer, but at an expense that's very, very manufacturing.
But you also have to have the technology that people want to make things faster, but keep the personal touch. Very difficult.
So it is, but it isn't. I think if you look at it from a long-term perspective, take AI as to how you go about banking. So I have a customer call me and say, you know, I have a delinquent on my residential mortgage. So you can either have an individual answer the phone, or you can have artificial intelligence that sits there and picks up the phone and says, I know that this is Ira Robbins based on the phone number. I know that Ira Robbins was delinquent. Ira Robbins has never been delinquent before. Why don't I just go ahead and waive that charge for him? Where compared to, it's Ira Robbins calling, I've been delinquent for the last 12 times, maybe that individual needs a little bit more counseling, right? So you can direct from an expense perspective a customized approach that I believe is unique to that individual customer, and that's where every bank needs to be. And not just bank, but I think from a customer perspective, everyone wants that unique touch and feel that connects with him or her.
I would go back, because in the Kramer interview on CNBC, you did talk about Trump a little bit.
Yeah.
Listen, we're doing this program in mid-April. We don't know what tweets coming out. We don't know what trade policy is going on. But I don't want to get into the complexities of a trade war potentially with China. The level of volatility, let's say, or unpredictability in Washington, the White House, to what degree does it impact the banking industry, if at all?
So look, we've been in a very benign economy, and the markets have been very low volatility in them, as you earlier described. You know, having a little bit of volatility is not bad. I think people have become very complacent.
Respectfully, Ira, for people with pensions that are waiting to retire, that ain't great.
I think from a risk perspective, understanding
Define
that
risk.
Look, risk is basically whether I'm risk averse as to what type of exposure I want to take within the market versus what my comfort level is. If you see a market that linear looks like this for a long period of time, someone necessarily isn't that attuned as to what their real risk profile is. Having a little bit of volatility every now and then eliminates some of that commonplace that people have begun to feel, and I think that's a good
Complacency? I remember when President Trump took office, it's going up and up. I'm thinking, hey, listen, those are my retirement funds. That's great. It's great. But there's a downside.
Yeah, it doesn't always go that way, right? And I think when you're looking at your investment profile, if your expectation is it's always going to go this way, you're going to have an allocation that maybe isn't the most appropriate for you today. So having a little bump here and there is part of the economy, is part of the economic cycle. We need that.
Real quick, branding question before we get back to regulation, before I let you go. As we speak, there's a discussion going on about tweaking, if you will, of the name of Valley, because your Chiron says Valley National Bank.
Yeah, you know, and I think how does that resonate to a specific customer? I think when we look at Valley National Bank, there's a current customer that we serve today, and maybe there's a target customer that looks a little bit different. And the millennials make up a much larger component of the workforce today than ever. We need to be able to target them. Does Valley National Bank resonate with that target segment today? I think it does with our current customer segment. And I think as we look to brand the bank as we move forward, we need to make sure we are resonating with both target segments, and then we have a product set and experience that resonates with both target segments as well.
So there might be a tweak in the name.
I believe so.
Okay, final question before you let you go. Banking industry over the next, I'm not going to say 3 to 5 years, the next couple of years, what do you predict in terms of interest rates?
Yeah, it's a good question. My own individual opinion, not the bank's opinion, would be that we're not going that high on the long end. I would say there's concerns that I have with regard to the global economy, with regard to where as an organization, where as an economy we're going to go. I would say the 10-year, in my opinion, doesn't get much over 3%.
That's it?
That's it. My own individual opinion. I think, you know, from a bank's perspective, risk management, we talked about volatility before, it's our responsibility, and it should be everyone's responsibility to make sure that we've set up a balance sheet that lets interest rates go to 5% and let interest rates go down to a 2%, just like somebody should do with their own individual investments.
Ira Robbins is President and Chief Executive Officer of, as we speak, Valley National Bank. Pay attention to the potential name change over time. Thank you, Ira.
Thanks, Steve. I really
Good to see
appreciate
you,
it. Thank you so much.
This is State of Affairs. We're at NJTV Studios in Newark, and we will be right back.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We are honored to welcome Jose Linares, Chief Judge of the New Jersey Federal District Court. Good to see you, Judge.
Good to see you, Steve.
Describe what the New Jersey Federal District Court is.
Well, the Federal District Court is the federal branch of the judiciary in New Jersey. Of course, most people are familiar with the state court system, from the municipal court level to the tenancy courts to the family court to the state courts. The federal judiciary, it's different. New Jersey is the oldest united district court in the country, meaning that it's only one district. And we service cases that deal with federal litigation, patent litigation, immigration cases, Social Security appeals. So it's a court of special jurisdiction in that in order to get into our court, you have to have a special type of jurisdiction, whether it's a federal question that's at issue, a constitutional issue, something like that. And the judges in the federal system are nominated, appointed by the president, and with the advice and consent of the Senate. So in that sense, it's also different.
Judge, you told me recently off camera that we have a crisis. What's the crisis?
We do. We have a judicial crisis in New Jersey. I say that because our court is an extremely busy court. We are a 17-judge court, active judge court. The federal judiciary, who tracks numbers and filings and so forth, has determined we really should be at a 20-judge court. And we're trying to get Congress to increase the number of judges in New Jersey to 20. But as of right now, we have, in essence, 5 vacancies out of 17, and we're going to be up to 6 come next year, or at least potentially 6 if one of the judges that becomes senior eligible next year chooses to go senior status. So
how does that impact our lives in New Jersey?
It impacts your lives a lot. When you think about it, New Jersey, and just to put it in perspective, from 2016 to 2017, we had a 47% increase in case filings. We're top among the Third Circuit, second, we're top in the Third Circuit, 4th in the nation, the number of filings, 7th in weighted cases, which means complex, complicated cases. And we handle a ton of pharmaceutical patent work and criminal cases. So how does it affect the citizens of New Jersey? Okay, we have an opioid crisis in New Jersey right now. Tons of problems arising out of that with criminal cases, reentry programs, and these are cases that come to the court.
What happens if there's no judge to handle them?
It becomes a huge problem. Now, under federal statute, there is a Speedy Trial Act, which means that the criminal cases got to go first, okay, which has a trickle-down effect on the other cases. You got to understand, too, and I mentioned the pharmaceutical because we're very heavily involved in patent litigation in New Jersey. 14 out of the 20th largest pharmaceutical
right here
places are in New Jersey. And as a result, we have a lot of that litigation.
So holding up patents.
So, well, some of that patent litigation between generics and branded drug manufacturers have to come to conclusion within 30 months. So now you have the opioid problems, the gangs, the criminal cases. That goes first. Then you have this other 30-month cases that have to be tried. Delaware and New Jersey combine for 90% of that type of litigation. 90% in the entire country. We're second in the country with the most vacancies right now.
Why?
Well, this is a more complicated problem.
Give me the short version.
The short version is that the White House and our senators haven't gotten together and come up with replacements for the judges that are presently vacant.
So the President Trump, the White House, and the 2 Democratic senators in New Jersey, Booker and Menendez, have to agree.
They have to agree. Now, I have talked to the White House counsel. I've sat down with him. He was kind enough to give me a lot of time, and as did Senator Menendez and Senator Booker, all of which assure me they're working on it. But right now, we're second, maybe first now in the country with the oldest vacancies. Some of these vacancies are 3 years old, and they haven't
There's nobody
been resolved.
there?
Listen, as of right now, we don't have anybody that's been confirmed, nominated and confirmed for U.S. Marshal in New Jersey, federal district court judges, U.S. Attorney, and there's a Third Circuit, although I saw something in the news, there may be a Third Circuit appointment coming up. But that's where we are. And when you say how does it affect the people, look, we handle, for example, Social Security cases.
Right.
Social Security cases are appeals from people that who claim to be totally disabled, potentially in financial straits, and that need a resolution to their case.
No judge, what happens?
The case waits and waits, and these people need help, and they have a right to have their case heard in a timely fashion. So we need more judges. When I say we're in a judicial crisis, it's not really about the judges. The judges are going to work with whatever cases they have. It's about the people in New Jersey.
Is there anything people in New Jersey can do?
Yeah, I think they can. Well, it is a political system in that the people in the political world have to come together and agree on an appropriate package that's agreeable to both sides, whatever that may be, to get this vacancies full. And it is a slow process. There's got to be a nomination, then there's got to be a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, and then a full Senate vote. So even if they were to act on it in the next month or two, we're still looking at a year with this court working at, 37% down, potentially almost 50%, because if you think of the court as one that really should be functioning at 20 judges, because as has been determined, because of the numbers of filings that we have over 16,000 filings last year, over 16,000. Now, if you look at
A few
that
seconds.
number,
Well, we're actually going to continue the conversation on our online version, but finish your statement.
my statement simply was going to be that if you look at the number of cases and the number of judges that has been acknowledged we're required to have, we're almost at a 50% level, which affects not the amount of work that judges are doing. It's the same amount of work. It's the citizens' cases being litigated, the corporate cases being litigated, the people that need their cases heard not being heard.
With the Chief Judge of the New Jersey Federal District Court, Jose Linares, we'll continue the conversation online. Check out our online version. But thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Check you out next week.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Varus and JTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by the law firm of GIBBONS, P.C., New Jersey Resources, Summit Medical Group, the New Jersey Education Association, Georgian Court University, New Jersey Council of County Colleges, and by the Fidelco Group.
Hi, I'm Eric. You might see me as an ordinary person, but I've been living with a brain injury for nearly 2 years. One of my struggles is short-term memory loss. At Opportunity Project, I'm given hope and support, and I've gained my confidence back through the job placement program. Despite my challenges, I have a reason to keep improving. Today, even though life has changed me, I believe that anything is possible.
If you have a brain injury, you don't have to face your road to recovery alone.